So, hi everybody and welcome back. This is a C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 156, and in this video we continue with our class keyword which we learned in which we started in our last video. And in this video I want to talk again about the general thinking about classes. That's very important that we start to think in classes, because it makes our life as a programmer much easier, because now we can, let's say, visualize more the things what we want to do. What I mean with that is, like I said in my examples, you can make a class of anything what you can see in our world. So we are simulating all the objects in our world. For example, house, then you just call it class house, and then you create something like this body here, and then define all the house properties, variables, for example, here, the functions for this house here, and so on. Or you create a class table, then you call it class table, and again, you will all what belongs to a table, you will throw into this body of this class table. So you can see that all variables, functions, which belongs to this class are now, let's say, collected in one place. Because before that, right now, what we programmed so far was more like that we used only functions and the general global space here. And then we defined our workflow in the function main, then we called other functions and then variables, but all this kind of stuff, variables, all the functions were distributed anyhow, and we didn't know exactly what was together. What I mean not exactly is, for example, I defined all my function definitions here at the bottom and made forward declarations here on top, but they were all different kind of function, perhaps what I needed for my program. So we made some yes, we created many functions in our exercises, and with classes now it becomes much more easier. Why? The reason is for that, like I said, now we throw all the functions, all the variables which belongs to a special class in the class body itself. That makes our life as a programmer easier, because I know, okay, this let's say this house class here, if it would, or in my case this bank account class here, it has names, as a bank account need a name, a bank account need probably a password, a bank account need probably int for money or something like that, if you are in plus or minus. And you can see all this kind of information which is related to the class. In my case, the bank account, I will throw in this class body itself. But other information which is not related, for example, car color, for example, it's absolutely not related to this bank account. I would not throw in a variable name car color in this bank account. Makes no sense. I would rather throw this car color in a class car, where it makes again sense. And you can see this kind of thinking, that all variables and functions have a special place where they belong, makes our life as a programmer much more easy, because we just have to think about a class and then we work towards this class or with the class. What I mean with that is, we can, of course, we have to create here in the main function a variable about this class and then work with this class and so on. But it's much more easier for us, and the best way to learn it is just to create many classes, and to all time use it. Of course, we have to continue, and let's continue and with our class. Enough talk. So here you can see that was the definition of the last video, which I used to declare this class here. And important is, there was one more thing which I should have said. Of course, you can write a variable name at the end before the semicolon here. Also, instead of creating here the variable name, you can write it here. For example, Wonder Woman bank account, something like that. And now you can see we have here a variable name, and we can use this variable name like this variable name. The difference is only that you have directly created here in the class, and I show you this only so that you don't get confused, because some people show examples like that, but this one here is not the case, the normal case, let's say. And the reason for that is because a class, like I said, it is just a definition, and most time you will create your variables in other places where you need it. So you will use only a class in the place where you need it. And by definition, when you create a definition, you don't know when you when you need this variable, only if you have a plan already to use this name, especially. Yeah, you get it what I mean, right? The normal case is, this one is not the normal case. The normal case is that you create them separately in another place, in the place where you need it. One more thing, you can of course make a comma and more variable names, and of course you can declare here some more, so get not confused about this one. That's that. And a fast repetition. This class here is by default public. What was public again? I mean private, sorry. It's by default private. What was private again? Private access by default means when I get rid of this one, when you have no specified this properties, this access specifiers, the access specifiers are this one, public, protected, private. This will be, if you have not specified anything, private. And then if it's private, you will get here an error if you try to access it from another variable. For example, I created here this variable, I try to access this one here, and it will give me an error. It's not accessible. Of course, in this case, it's not even here, but you know what I mean. So that's very important to know, because now I want to talk about structs. And why I want to talk about structs is we have read this class declaration, and here this class key, it said here, this class key can one-off class struct and union. So, and today I want to talk about the struct. It's very easy, because when we read here a little bit more, it says class and structs are identical except of the default member access and the default base class access. So this base class access we will skip, because we have not learned base classes and so forth. But this is just later you can know what a base class is, and then we can go here back to this one. But important is this member access, and this member access I just showed you. Here are the access specifiers, and here is the official site. And of course I will go here perhaps later, because I skipped this now. You can see we have here public, protected, and private. And here are the base class depending. That's not so important now. This one we skip for now. We go directly now to struct. And one more thing here, and you can see here on this list here, there is also a union. It's also absolute similar to a class, but there is one big difference in storage management, and that's why I need to talk about this one separately, because this storage management is very important to know what does this mean, and I have to show you an example there. But in this case, struct, it's very simple. That's why we jump now into struct, and let's create a struct. So again, very important. Like it says, a class and a struct are almost identical. Just the access specifier and the access specifier are this kind of stuff what we learned. And the only difference about struct is, like I said before, class is private and struct will be public if nothing is in it. So let's make an example. Let's create a struct. The only difference, the only thing what you change is just replace this class with a struct and make all other things similar to this one here. So let's make it struct and I call it now container of variables. There's a special reason why I call it this one. I will talk in a moment about this, but first let's learn about struct a little bit more. And you can do all kinds of things what you can do in this class here. So let's write here a default. Let's create first of all a variable. Let's call it string. Let's call it a variable name. For example, name of a person, and let's assign it, for example, Maggie. All right, we created now the Maggie here, and like all time, this is similar to this one. You can declare here also variables here if you want, but this is not the normal case. That's why I skip it, because this one is just the definition and you use them later where you need it. That's why I skipped this one, but just in case, you should know that you can do this here as well. All right, with that said, now what I can do is let's print this name also out, like I printed out this one name here. And here, let's do this. See out, you can see, oops, before I print it out, I have to do what, like in classes, because I forgot it. I have to create a variable. Of course I could create here one, but we create it all time here. Let's create a variable. We call it this time struct. Oops, not struct. We have we have here our variable name, which is a struct, so a container of variables. I copy this one here, and this one is, oops, not the struct, yeah, just this one, and this one is now our type, container of variables. And now we find a variable name, variable names. I will call it variable names now, and now I print it out as the name, the out, and now variable names is, I need again my variable name here, variable names, and now I use again like a class this dot, which is an access specifier, access, yeah, is an access, not specifier, is an yeah, it's provide access to the class or the struct. And now I can name of the person. You could see you can see that I can just select it directly now, and yeah, that's it. So, and the one before I start here this program, important to note is the difference about the struct here and the class here on top was that I have to put this one in public, and you can see here I have not put this one in public at all, because by default means you can't see it, but it is considered public by default, which means I can access it here directly. And that's the meaning of this this member access here. All right, that's very simple. I think that's very doable. Important is one more things, but let's see if this works. So of course, test your code all the time. And you can see, yes, we have here Coder, we have here Maggie, perfect, it works. So, but there is another problem, or let's say not a problem, but you should know it. And the thing what you should know it, when you read struct in C++ or in programming general, the problem is struct is considered to be used with most time, careful, most time with plain variable, also plain datas. Plain datas means only declaration of variables like here. And the class in general are used to declare function, methods, nested, and all kinds of stuff in classes. So the question is why they are doing this. So why they are not using struct and class equally, because they are only separated by this access specifier. And the reason for that is, in general, that has more to do with history than with actual programming, because the struct was created first in C, and in C they used it for just plain data, right? Plain data means just this kind of stuff, just declaring variables and nothing more. So in C++, they changed the definition of a struct. A struct is similar to a class, which means actually you should know that you can do the same thing in struct as well as in class as a C++ programmer. But on the internet, in many other programming sites, you will see that almost all programmers use the struct here just for storing data. And that's why I said here container of variables, because they are only creating variables here. No functions, no nested other things, nested classes, no, all what you can throw in a class. When they use a class, then they use really a class to make it, let's say, easier to understand what you are going after. And if you are using a struct, then it's most time they know you are going to declare just variables, and that's it. And that's why they make also the use of this public available. Like you can see, I have not to put this one here in public, like this one here, because they are just throwing in variables. They are public available, which means you can create a variable and then access it directly here. Here in this case it was here and here. So that's very important to know. But like I said, as a C++ programmer, you must know this one has nothing to do really with container of variables. This is just the general understanding how they use them, but in real you can use it exactly like a class. That's very important. And don't get irritated that some programmer might use it just as a class. So you should be aware of this one. Very important. But many other programs, let's call it so, many other programmers use it just like I wrote here as a plain container of variables. And classes, if they really want to define functions, members, and other things like that. All right, that is very important to know. But one more thing, as a starter, like I said, write this one here. We are in structs now. Here, put this one in, and now you can see what you want to do. For example, you can make this one, of course, private too. And after I put this one now in the private section here, this one here, you can see this one is no more accessible, right? Because I put now the access specifiers here. And if they are placed, then you have to place them in the right place. For example, if you want access here, you should place them also here in. So let's place them back to public, which means I put them here. And now you can see now I have access here again. Very important. And like I said, as a beginner, write all time at start this public, protected, and private in, and then put there what you want. At start, put most time you will put many things in public, and protected we skip because we need to learn inheritance and child blueprints and so on. And here we private. Private is also important. So you, like I showed you here, if you want not that anything outside of this class or this struct in this case will access it, then you would put it in private. So let's put this one. Let's say my password and my thing here. Let's put those here in private. Because I don't want that anyone outside of the struct should access it. And then you would create here other things, but later more. So I think that's good. And there is one more thing before I stop this video, which is also very interesting to talk, and you can make a little research about this one. And the thing is, here, what I did here is actually like we did it all time. We created this one is the type, right? We all time work like this one here. This is also a type, it's a type. And we learned now that this type is a class or a struct because they are more or less similar. And class and struct means how you construct this type, right? That's interesting. But what is this variable now here? And then you will see in the internet there is a discussion a little bit about this variable here is called an object, or this variable is called an instance sometimes. So, and some people say you can say they are interchangeable, which means you can use it for both. For us as a starter, actually we don't care so much if it's called instance or object, because we call it just a variable which is declared, right? This is a declaration here. And but later we have still to understand what object-oriented programming means and what an instance is. So this is your job to try out what is the difference about object and instance. So that's you can try to find it out, but one little tip here I can give you, because you must be careful about the word object. Object is, let's say, so a general word. There are many different meanings. I mean, not just in C++. Many people mix them with general speaking, with C++, and with other programming languages. And yeah, they are mixing this a little bit. And sometimes I don't know too what they mean. And important is for us as a C++, and that's very important, as a C++ programmer, to understand what an object in C++ is. And to understand this, this part you can skip because I show you what this is. In C++, an object, we have here an object side, which defines what exactly an object in C++ is. And then when you really understand this side here and all this kind of stuff, then you know what an object in C++ is. And careful, this object here is not the general understanding of that what I show you here, because here they say this is a class creation and then you make an object about this one. If you understand this object here, what they mean here on this side, then you will understand if this is an object or not. But interesting is, what is an instance then? And that will bring a lot of confusion. So, and this job I let you do. You can try to research this on online, read on forums a little bit what they are talking. What is an instance? What is an object? Because if you read a little bit more about this one, you will also understand a little bit more about this object-oriented programming. But as a starter, don't worry if you don't understand it, because we will just, I will just call it, here is our class, and we create a variable about this class. If this is now an object or if this is now an instance, this doesn't matter for us. We won't use it. As a beginner, we just won't use it. Later, when we get better and better, like I said, when we learn all the differences about objects and instances, then I will tell you also what an instance is, because sometimes you will see there are instances which are not objects. But this is, yeah, try to search this one online. It's very confusing anyway. With that said, I stop this video here, and like all time, if you have any questions, any complaints, any tips and tricks, write them down in the comments. See you in the next. Bye and good luck.